The Uplands podcast with the property expert. If it's happening in Upland, it's the place you want to check first. With your host who's stupid to win and thank me later. Bringing the strategy, news, and cool charts with all the data. This is Upland, where the metaverse goes down. Genesis, San Fran, to Rio, and all around. Don't miss a week, you never know what they'll say next. It's the Upland property experts, baby, UPX.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Upland Property
Experts.
Camera? Right in front of you.
Is it this one? Where am I looking? Which camera am I looking into? It's already
This one, right
that
in front
one?
of us.
Oh, okay.
All right. As you can see, we're live in Upland's Las Vegas studio. Welcome to the Upland Property Experts podcast. I am your host, Too Stupid to Win. As always, I'm joined by ThankMeLater. How are we doing, brother?
Fantastic, man. It's a great day here,
Yeah.
I guess.
It's Genesis Week. It's going on. We were here last year. Thank the Upland team for letting us broadcast live from their studios once again this year.
Caesar in the house.
And we
Crypto driver. Shaq.
What up, Shaq?
Shaq.
Shaq made it to Vegas.
Wearing my Shaq shoes. Shaq and Rob shoes. Let's go.
Where can I get those? I want those.
You can get these at upxworld.shop. These are made by Upland artists.
Amazing.
Yeah, Robzilla and Shacklin.
Yeah.
And then the tongue.
Yeah, the tongue is Shacklin, and the base is Robzilla from 1111. Yeah, check that out. There you go.
Nice. Yeah. All right.
And we're joined by co-founder Idan Zuckeman for the second year in a row. Thanks.
It's a tradition now. Right?
Yeah,
That's it. It's a
yeah.
done deal. All
Yeah.
right. Cool.
Something we do want to get out of right ahead of time is that, you know, this is not a Q&A session. This is a show for people that are watching us for the first time and aren't familiar with us. We're going on year number 3 of the podcast. We broadcast live every Thursday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern time. So what we're doing today is we're going to sit down, talk with Idan about the past year in Upland, the exciting stuff going on this week for Genesis Week, and what the future is of Upland. We did get some questions from community members, a lot of same common questions, so we'll throw those out there too. We do have Dizzy in the house monitoring and watching the comments for us, so we will try to get to some questions and comments. But we do have a short amount of time. We only have an hour time frame with Idan, so.
We can burn through an
It's a
hour.
lot. We have a lot to talk about. So yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, you guys shouldn't have released so much.
Wait, last year you were complaining they didn't release enough. Now you're telling them to release it too much?
Yes.
Let them keep releasing too much. I'm okay with that.
But it's hard, you know, looking at each thing, you're like, okay, I see how this impacts the game, but then you stack everything on top of each other. And it's hard to process how it all works together.
But again, like I don't know, I have this thing I like to say connecting the dots, and they are slowly connecting. And some things that are launching, they appeared in 2021 roadmap, and they're still like we haven't. It's not that we haven't delivered it. We're working on it. And cafes, for example, 2021 roadmap.
Yeah.
Happening like literally really soon, like seconds. or
Really?
minutes, yeah.
Seconds?
Seconds?
Minutes, hours, I don't know, but it's happening. So these things are huge, and
Yeah.
and the things that you guys get to see when we launch them, we've been working on them for months, right? And so it's like we always think like the Upland that you guys see in real time is the Upland we envisioned 6 months or a year ago, right? And right now the Upland that we are seeing is the Upland a year from now or so.
That's cool.
But it's a ever long process of just trying to innovate, just making this happen. And I'm really happy at the pace that we are actually managing to innovate and deliver. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm happy.
I mean, the last couple of weeks, it was just insane, the amount of content that was just coming out and trying to wrap your head around how it will impact the game. What I did like from your fireside chat with General Mort was the top. We discussed it on the show a few weeks ago about the frustration of having to be in the city with the shop to buy a block Explorer.
Yep.
I do like that you now are working on the ability to have it shipped to an address in the city of the store. Hopefully you guys incorporate a meta venture with it, a shipping meta venture, but it would be also nice, for an additional fee that, you can ship it to a different city of your choice.
Yeah, there's a right. So friction is not always bad.
Sure.
Sometimes it serves for gamification and immersion.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we may go too far, and maybe there's too much friction, and we need to undo it. So this is with, let's say, secondary markets and meta ventures, right? Right now, it's a bit too frictioned.
Correct.
But with the ability, and by the way, we always envisioned that shipping mechanism.
Yeah.
And that gives you the opportunity both to have secondary markets with less friction, but also to give some more utility for properties and reasons to own more properties around the world. So
it's a really creative solution, because in my mind, I think when we had talked about it, it's like, yeah, just pay like a shipping fee, an extra fee. I would happily pay a 10% over cost to have it shipped. But I really like the mechanism idea of, if you have a property in that city. Now, with that though, you all right?
I had to burp. I didn't want to do it right in the microphone.
With that, I was curious how you think that'll affect markets like Rutherford and Manhattan, where they have like the buy-in price is rather high. And so comparatively to like Detroit or San Francisco and LA that have maybe more availability and more meta ventures, do you think that mechanic then tilts the scales, probably in a good way, to bigger markets where, like, I'm not going to buy a 10x cost property in Manhattan just to shop in Manhattan necessarily?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most difficult and interesting questions about these types of huge open economies. It's really, really hard to predict how the mechanics that are changing are going to affect the markets. And that's why we're doing this. I mean, you've been following this for years now, right? We're doing this very carefully. Every change that we're introducing is done very slowly, very gradually, and very cautiously, right?
Yeah.
And because again, we like the one thing that's important for the open economy is stability, right? And kind of
stability,
like, and again, you want to do this like really, really slowly, really, really, sure. And that's why, like, I don't know, like the changes, the slight changes that we've made to treasure hunting tiers and stuff like that, right? It was really thought through, really slowly deployed, and we don't want to make too many changes and too many things that will affect this. So to your question, I can't really predict, but I think that these mechanics make a lot of change, because at the end of the day, empowering the secondary markets is really beneficial for the entire economy. So everybody who participates will benefit from the fact that secondary markets have more velocity to them.
Yeah. You guys are definitely very methodical about your changes, which a stable economy cannot be underplayed. I will take a stable economy and slower rollout of features 100% of the time, because honestly, I think like the stability of UpX is incredibly important. It's why I think Upland is doing better compared to its peers. Like, honestly, Decentraland Sandbox, even if they have bigger like partners, like brands that are partnered with them, necessarily, their economies to me are rubbish.
Yeah, because again, it's a bit different. I think these types of economies are really, really exposed to speculative forces. And I think, to be honest, like, we have so much more like substance, I think, behind the economy. So there's a lot going on, I think. And that's important, right? Because when you go beyond speculation, then that's where the real value comes in. So people actually creating value, creating real interactions between players that don't depend on just speculation. I think it's super important. And not to say that these platforms don't have that, but I think Upland has, probably in the top of kind of like the economies that you say, okay, Web3 economies that actually have real engagement and interaction going on in between the stakeholders. I think Upland is definitely at the top of the list.
And I'd be interested on your take on this. We were debating in last week's episode about the secondary market, and so there were some people complaining about some of the cities, 35%, 40% US dollar versus original mint, and Upland is crashing the secondary market. My take on it was Upland's not crashing the secondary market. If you look at the statistics, you hover right around 400,000 available properties. You keep it balanced between the tiers. And then his argument was, this is exactly what you guys wanted. And
I don't agree with the term crashing the market, but I think it's controlled scalability of, like, I don't think that Upland ever wants the Manhattan bubbles again.
And I agreed with you on that.
10x. Over mint. Like, from a property perspective, I don't think that that's a scalable model. And I think
our strategy was always, again, we're trying to more or less define a baseline for Upland, keep it equivalent to the real world. Sometimes we would, again, like, I think back with so the releases mint prices is pretty comparable in between releases, and we want to let the secondary markets do their job, right? We don't want to dictate that, and that's the reason why when Upland launches new content, it definitely compared to Web3 ecosystems, it's generally affordable, right? It's not difficult to get into. And then when we release new content, it will always be in the mindset of keeping engagement going and interesting content, partnering with real world companies and brands in those locales. And sometimes we can introduce the new partners only after a bit of time passes after the release. One example is Stock Pro Series in Sao Paulo, for example, which is, again, this is the brand we've been talking to a long while, but again, the Sao Paulo release came before the announcement of the brand, right? So oftentimes it's going to be a combination of these, so engagement, partnerships, and then actual economic pressure when places get sold out and you want to just expand and have more availability there.
Right.
But again, I think consistently, if you look at the history of Upland, like you said, the availability of unminted properties has been pretty much on par. So I think we're always hovering around 90% minted properties compared to unminted. Sure. And don't forget also, there's a lot of times there's a long tail of properties that are kind of like, they may be too big or too expensive or kind of like not in desirable places. So a lot of times some properties get kind of like left off to the, let's call it less desirable bucket. Sure. So when we look at the minting, it's not that we look at 100% mint as like the ultimate pressure, right? You always see like these curves where it starts to plateau close to 90-something%. And that's where we kind of like see, okay, this is about to be what we consider fully minted. That includes all FSA unsold, all of the less desirable properties, etc.
And sometimes you get those rushes. It's like even 2 years ago, if you remember San Fran, a lot of it's kind of unminted, and there was that big push. We had a couple big players join in, and all of a sudden it was 500 left, 400 left, 100 left, and then like overnight everything was gone. I know you give Manhattan a little bit of beef. Someone in this room owns a lot of Manhattan. From a multiple perspective, they're kind of high, but if you look at kind of just flat UPX value perspective right now in the secondary, it's on par with London and LA for a similar up-squared size.
Yeah, but the markup.
But is it the fault? I mean, secondary market, I think it's pretty fair. If you took 70,000 or an 80,000 UPX property in Manhattan versus in LA or versus London, they're all relatively the same size, relatively kind of same features.
That's fair.
And keep in mind, even within the city, right? There should be high volatility even within the city. There are hotter neighborhoods. There are community kind of like engaged neighborhoods. There are collections. Like it's hard to just compile everything into one linear. And that's the beautiful thing about NFTs. Like everything is uniquely different than the other.
That's fair. Yeah, sorry, I won't harp on Manhattan too.
Harlem is a steal still.
Harlem.
I'm kidding.
Anyway.
I think that was probably just a low mint. Most properties were 4,000 up.
I really think Manhattan was underpriced when it came out. Underpriced, and there was not enough supply for the demand at the time. I think if they were to do it again, if you did like the phase releases like you do now, it'd probably have a different outcome. But
sure. I would listen. We are learning as well.
No, I mean, you go and I mean, then you have the other end of the spectrum. Like, I don't expect we'll ever see another LA of like hundreds of thousands of properties released that big that are, I have to imagine that was something that the team is looking at of like, we probably over released on LA.
I think it's a fair assessment
along those lines, because if you're looking at London and the secondary market and the way that's pricing and the amount of properties released, it was that what you guys envisioned for the LA release? Did you learn lessons from the LA release going forward?
One important note is that there's a lot of technical complexity to how we manage things in the back end. And keep in mind, when we did the LA release, our management capabilities of these releases was completely different compared to what it is today.
That's fair too.
So even then,
people don't consider that. Actually.
We didn't even have the option to do partial releases, right? So again, oftentimes it's a bit more complicated than just kind of like, okay, why did you choose to do that or that? It's always there are different considerations.
Yeah, for the people that were wondering, the voice, somebody called it the voice of God. I wouldn't go that far, but the voice off camera is the one and only Dizzy.
Daddy Dizzy Dulla.
The camera's over
There
there.
it is. See, I told you it's not as.
And I did bring this for the show for those who tune in.
Oh, you brought the squirrels.
He brought the squirrels.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes it's off a little bit of
I
tangents.
don't-
That's my cue.
He sits backstage in the show, and
Oh,
if
yeah.
we go off on tangents, when he goes off on tangents, he holds them up, and we can see
Squirrel.
him. We can see him
Squirrel.
backstage with the
So
squirrel.
if you're looking for a third year anniversary block explorer for the UpX podcast, Squirrely Dan, that might be a good one. Some squirrels, just saying. You know,
Nice.
if you wanted to.
So remind me, you guys launched the podcast on Genesis Week on the second
week after.
the week after second Genesis Week, right? Or
The week
first?
after the
First
first
one.
Yeah.
we came back from Genesis Week so excited. We were like, or no, because that wasn't even in person. It was
Yeah.
virtual.
Yep.
And then, but I had gotten the Genesis property.
Do you still hold it, by the way?
I am still the holder. Yeah. So if you are playing the UpX World Bingo, I am the center square. So be sure you find me. Jack up send. I'm not gonna. I will never jack up send fees. My send fees will always be lowest. I will keep them at city floor. And actually, not financial advice, but we have actually run the numbers. It is financially significantly better to run lowest send fees versus the highest send fees. You make like
And is
5x.
it similar in between each city?
All cities are.
All cities
We are
included.
seeing exactly the same.
Because you didn't realize that pretty much I track my UpX collections daily when I log in. I log it into a spreadsheet and break it down by month, and I'm earning over about $150 a month, or 150,000 UpX a month in send fees alone.
Which is insane. I did not realize it was
Yeah.
so much. And then you look at like the actual volume, because a lot of the treasure hunters will do with add-ons or know who has high send fees. And if you have a high send fee, they'll skip over you. So it's
Super interesting.
It's a really, so your value on some of the properties, and sorry, this is a bad tangent, is like significantly higher than its mint value, depending on its area. And if it's in an area that's controlled by a player who puts high send fees, your property in that area could be worth 10x because it's such a popular send location. It's kind of crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's a new thing we're exploring a little bit more. But
The
anyway,
micro parts of the game you guys didn't even realize.
I don't imagine you did. Like,
Yeah, I mean, in complex
Well, to
systems,
the-
there are so many subsystems
yeah.
that, like, it's like.
we
but it's
completely
fascinating,
understand.
right?
Yeah, we weren't knocking you for not knowing that or thinking about that. We were just saying that it's
I don't think
something we discovered. It was
Yeah.
something we
Yeah.
discovered a few months ago.
yeah. So like, I mean, it would be interesting. I think we're going to compile the numbers of like, what's the actual revenue generated from a property. So when you look at like revenue generation of properties, like
Right.
I did not realize how impactful the send fees were on that number.
Here we go, TNL. Look at that.
As someone who once charged highest fees, this is very true. Well, Divine Llama Love, thank you. And agree.
Yeah.
Send fee analysis, says BC for fun.
Do you remember the Genesis property off the top of your head?
1829 Jefferson Street, something like that.
Continue.
Thanks, Dizzy. All right. Man, we jumped all over the place already. It's great. I love it. So you've made a lot of changes to the way that you release cities. You've worked your back end and it's changing. Do you guys continue to refine that, make improvements to enhance the way city releases will look in the future?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. So first of all, I think from technical perspective, right? Like, you remember we had
Cleveland.
Stop it. Stop it.
Still heard.
Sorry, bro.
Still heard about Cleveland.
Yeah.
That was so like, we're going to release 20%. Here's a property here. Here's a property here. It wasn't even neighborhoods. It was just like random properties.
They were trying things out.
I know.
And if you're going to experiment, why not Cleveland?
There were worse places than Cleveland to do.
I mean, Cleveland.
So I would say to our defense, again, we never planned for it to go wrong, right?
But
Today our tech is so much more solid than it was 3 or 2 years ago. So that's one thing. But yeah, we're always thinking about new things, and we now have more and more tools to do so. So we didn't have map assets a year ago, and we didn't have outdoor structure ornaments, and what about cars, and now and racetracks and speedways and meta ventures, and now fully 3D immersion inside the app. So
it's crazy.
There's going to be a lot of things. Then they are going to also tie into releases as well.
Yeah.
So what has been your most enjoyable thing about Upland in the last year? And what is your most exciting thing that you've announced right now that you're wanting to see how it develops in the economy and throughout the community?
Oh my God. There's so much to choose from. You have to focus me on something because I like.
Okay. Well, obviously you're big in the car space, so let's start with the car. What's your?
I like to think that I'm big in every space, but I think
that's true. You are. I mean, yeah. You're wearing an M Motor shirt.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites actually.
Yeah.
Back before it got rebranded as MV Motors, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. So like, what's your favorite thing happening in cars?
Right. So I think again, it's the whole package, because I think these may have been things that we spoke about even last year, right? Like the ability for. So again, one fascinating thing that I love about car racing in Upland, and that's very distinctive than other racing games and platforms, is that you have the world and you have activity going on, and every street and every highway can potentially become a raceway. And it's a never-ending thing, and it's up to players to come up with their cool raceways, and then also to make them richer visually or whatever. And the recently launched speedways meta ventures that we did, I think, is a very elegant solution to that, basically to ensuring that okay, you want to run a speedway, have some skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
Don't come and then plot your speedway based on somebody else's work, right? In the neighborhood, you have to have properties along the way, along the track. And now, as we are, speaking about launching things, as we are going to introduce some, more player agency for racing, that will also bring up racing for Apex. So now that those can become fully fledged meta ventures, and whoever does the most successful speedways in the best communities, in the most visually appealing places, which will only get richer and richer, they will also hopefully create the most monetization out of it in terms of Apex or other means. So that's something very exciting to me. I really, really love our partnership with Stock Car Pro Series. Again, this is kind of like, what I love about that is that covers like all of our product suite, from cars to actual real world racetracks to legits to spotlights so everything is going to be like, imagine for a second, right? When we're going to launch cafes, right, you're going to see Upland around you when you walk out to the porch or hang out with somebody on the rooftop. And right now it's just a static image. Very, very soon it's going to be a dynamic image that just changes as Upland evolves. And in the more distant future, you're going to see actually live things happening. So imagine that you own a building, a rooftop in the middle of a racetrack. And now you go outside as you immerse in that place, in that cafe or that apartment or whatever it is, and you actually see the race kind of like go around you in real time. Now we're starting to talk about, next generation of kind of like, and again, there are really not a lot of platforms in the world that can have the pathway of how to get there. Yeah. And I think we're getting there in stride. So to me, that's some of the most exciting things that tie, and it ties not just cars and races, but it ties everything together, right? That's pretty cool.
So I am going to take it as a win, because you asked last year what we thought we'd announce this week at Genesis Week, and we said the live token, the stem, and all that. You announced it 4 days before Genesis Week, so I'm taking that as a win. You guys announced it. We call it a Genesis Week
totem,
announcement.
Though, the totem is the
that's like the spud.
The grand prize, though, right?
Yeah.
Of Genesis Week.
The
llama totem.
Yep.
So that, to me, that solidifies that is one of the big launches. I think that there might be another launch of something interesting. I don't know.
So, and we know you're a big music person, so we're hoping it's a live music venue.
Because Berlin was not your first choice. Come on, it cannot have been your first for the planned city release. It was not Berlin, and you can't say it was, because I won't believe it. Because
So
I have it on good
liar?
authority that it got changed maybe a month ago. That you had a city planned for the live opening, and it got changed because of an undisclosed partnership or a deal that came through, that it got switched to Berlin. I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but
he's putting you on the hot
and I'm
seat.
just interested to know what makes you say that. Right.
Somebody told me.
Somebody from where?
I cannot disclose my sources. However, it wasn't a public forum. This was not a private situation.
Okay.
Although the only information was that the city had been changed from what had originally been planned because of something. So
him putting a month time frame on it might not be the most accurate.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember exactly when I heard, but it's like it had changed fairly recently.
Because we were like, everything was leaning the grunge, the Seattle.
So I would say that, like our economy, we're not in the business of speculation.
Let's
just leave it
there it is. All right, you heard it here first. 100%. 100%.
Great executive talk there.
So speaking of hot seat, so on the car sync, so I am a huge Block Explorer collector. I probably have one of the most extensive Block Explorer.
What's your favorite?
Oh,
Well, you're
you still
yeah,
the
sure.
chicks?
Beyond your director.
If beyond my director
The
one,
turtle.
no, it's actually my artist. It's my artist spotlight one set. So I have. It was the first artist
Oh,
spotlight
yeah.
that he did
Nice.
with the Beast. Yeah, that was super cool. That's one of my favorite. That is my favorite set outside of that. What is it still planned? Because we haven't really heard a lot about it. Block Explorers as drivers, specifically for racing, that they will be able to get attribute points.
100%.
And things like that. Okay, so
100%.
that's still
Absolutely. 100%.
okay. Because it felt like okay. Because there was also like, oh, well, are they going to come out with dedicated Block Explorers that can do it? My understanding is that all the history of Block Explorers, they'll all start out and they can be trained.
They can be.
Now, you might come out with some new ones that have some added. I don't know. My understanding was that it will all be like base and grow from there. But
So I can absolutely say that all Block Explorers will have the ability to become drivers. For
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's really good.
And 100%, it's still on the roadmap. We have not. The only thing I think what caused maybe a bit of confusion is that I think at probably one of the interviews or kind of like I don't remember what was the opportunity there, but I think we said that we have prioritized player agency over Block Explorers, so that will be delivered first. And I think that may have caused a bit of confusion, but 100% drivers are still on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Trying to pull those Block Explorers as an example.
Squirrels?
Absolutely.
Well, okay, that makes me feel good as somebody who has put a lot of money and effort into Block Explorers. Like, I think like that's an important functionality of Block Explorers. And I mean, especially like avatars and the Ready Player Me stuff, which is really cool. Great partnership there. Like that also like got people, I think, a little anxious about, well, what is the value proposition of Block Explorers? Like, are they being sidelined? Is it just a fun little picture kind of thing? Like, so that's good to know.
I mean, we consider Block Explorers as the core identity of your Upland, and where your 3D avatar
core
is
identity, fam. Hear that?
Whereas your 3D avatar is your projection in immersive settings, right? So
Fair.
When we think about avatar strategically, we want to embrace the open nature of the future metaverse. So if you look 10 years to the future, we want you to represent yourself however you want, right? Be it like with your avatar from Fortnite or Minecraft or whatever, I don't know.
Or UpX World.
Or UpX World.
There you
Hopefully you'll be able to, not be just limited to Ready Player Me avatars or whatever. We want
really?
that
Oh,
to be
so
open.
you see potential partnerships with other avatar creators and not just leveraging the partnership.
My hope is that it's not going to be up to partnerships at all. That it's just going to be anybody who embraces the open metaverse will allow that porting of identities over.
Because with the open metaverse, you can.
But I can say that our strategy is 100% to accept any type of 3D avatars that are going to be technically importable into Upland. So you can represent yourself the way you want to. And the core identity for Upland players, for us, it will always be the Block Explorer.
Oh, much love then. Cool.
So back to the life and the stem and the totem.
Man,
yeah.
the protem and the totem and the.
Don't do it.
Nope.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I wasn't going to. I was thinking.
You had that look. You had that look.
Me? Who, me? No. I'm excited. This, to me, feels like the first, and I mean this lovingly, it feels like the first time I've seen a mechanic come out from Upland that gamification was thought of as part of the process and not as an afterthought. And what I mean by that is with the totems where you have to like constantly stake and there's like variations on like the cap and the frequency. Like this feels very much like a standard gaming component that makes me like, oh yeah, this feels like something I get to go in and I farm and I click it and I have different durations and then I stake this and I collect this. Like, thank you, first of all. And yeah, do you have any questions? I just wanted to compliment because like honestly, I'm very excited about it.
He was super excited. He's like, it's like my Tamagotchi all over again. And
Yeah, like I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but what's really interesting about it is that each one of them is going to be 100% unique, right?
Right.
So that's going to be pretty cool. And again, we look at it predominantly as us testing the waters for the first time with the mechanics that would later be required for life. And again, when you imagine life in general, obviously you can't have it too much engaging, right? There's no way you're gonna for each flower that you raise in Upland, you're gonna need to personally grow it. So we like to call it kind of like, okay, the mechanics of life on steroids. So it's gonna be somehow contracted and compacted to these set of totems that are gonna be a one-time issuance, and that's it. And our hope is that we learn a lot about it, and then B, we kind of like see how the community engages with the task of basically maintaining the metaphoric life that it represents.
And with that, before we get into the details there, with that in the roadmap, when we first started talking about Spark and life and all that, we did talk about mining and farming. It's, you still have to get the fundamentals down on the life, but have we lost the outlook of mining and farming in Upland still, or on the wastelands, or?
Yeah, so the big answer is no, we've not lost any of it. I think for farming, that would be the base mechanic of how it is envisioned that you get STEM. So STEM is envisioned to be an ever-inflationary token by design, right? STEM because the more you have STEM, the more life you can sustain. And in turn, the more life potentially it can bring you back, right? So at the end of the day, STEM is an ever-inflationary token, right?
Okay.
Unlike, let's say, Apex, for example, which is not really the case. It's a bit unique difference, and Spark is also kind of like a bit different mechanics, different and different style. At the end of the day, the ability to produce more STEM will tie directly to things like farming or animals that you raise, etc. Part of the reason, by the way, why we are big proponents of the initiative with the Species Foundation, it's because if you want to maintain a rich library of elements that you can farm, be it livestock or plants or agriculture, then we can't rely on our own ability to produce all that crazy amount of library, right? What we are aiming for at the end of the day is that we are going to be able to adopt all species of life that have been standardized to be implemented in Upland. And it's a bit of a grandiose task. It will take some time, but again, the steps are being taken together. So to your question, no, we have not let that go. That's still a big part of our vision.
So will STEM decay at all, or is it truly ever inflationary?
Define decay.
So it's good to clarify. So let's say I have a tree, a totem, whatever. I'm giving it the life. I'm giving it STEM, and ideally I'm harvesting STEM. So I'm harvesting the material that it's used, very much like Protum. Is that how that will work?
Yeah, but
and then if it's not active, so let's say that a tree takes 10 STEM or whatever to just keep going. If then I collect the STEM, but then I don't have anywhere to put it, so I have 10 STEM on the tree and then I have 10 STEM in my inventory, I don't have life to give that STEM. Does it start to decay? And so every week I'll lose a STEM. So that way somebody who's not active, I
understand the question. Yeah. So the life forms, yes, they can decay if you don't nurture them.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
But the way that you lose them is very easy. Think about a cat, for example, or a dog. A dog will never give you STEM.
A dog will never give you STEM.
No, it will just
give you love.
Exactly.
It's the next token.
It's the love token. Yeah. Exactly. So that's
about the love.
That's a beautiful thing about love. That's a beautiful thing about life, right? Yeah. It's not just basically the means to harvest STEM, but there are actually going to be things that you want to have that are going to be things like pets and other things that you grow just maybe flowers, right? Most flowers will not give you any STEM back. They're just pretty. but you are still going to be willing to put STEM into them because they make your neighborhood nicer looking.
Yeah, neighborhood store.
And then with pets, does that get into animal breeding?
In the future, absolutely, yes. And
Yeah,
again,
no reason
part
not
of the
to, yeah.
reason why we want to rely on something like the Species Foundation, because all of those definitions of how do these creatures reprocreate, what you need to do to breed, right? What are kind of the patterns that come out of two types of breed that you put together? These are not things that we want to define on our own. We want the world to define it and adopt those the results of that.
So right now, would you say like high level, these are things that Upland's talking about, or is there like another level you guys have already kind of delved into as far as those kind of decisions go?
Right. So we are huge backers and probably I'd call it the initiators of what we call the Species Foundation. So it's going to be a decentralized effort to take all life forms in the world and map them into a unified digital repository that can then be adopted by any virtual game or world in the future. And the good thing is that any platform that adopts this standard, then those assets become theoretically interoperable in between those platforms. And what's brilliant about it is, think about it today. If interoperability is pretty easy on the technical level, especially with NFTs, right? You can take an asset and theoretically another platform can just read the visuals and implement it, right?
Sure.
But if I was to take like an Upland dog and try to put it in Minecraft, it's not going to fit because Minecraft is a voxel world. Upland is kind of like more like a realistic world, right?
You mean stylistically, it just wouldn't.
It's cognitively, stylistic, whatever you want to say. The way that we have designed the mechanisms behind the Species Foundation is that the dog becomes a logical element and it knows how to manifest itself in different visual art styles. So now
that's super cool.
Now you have the prospect of actual potential future interoperability with anyone that adopts a standard.
Yeah, that's huge.
Speaking of voxel, I don't know, I want to segue into something maybe a little bit.
Hey, let me host. I know. I saw that out there, but because Vox has been talking about these chickens, so
they're big in the game. They're very valuable. Chickens and cows.
Yeah. So Vox has been on these chickens and cows, and go ahead and ask your question.
It's come up through the viewership here. I'm sure maybe it'll be talked about more tomorrow, or maybe maybe it won't be. But any updates in the Gallup partnership, or not really at this time, or?
So I'm aware of some updates. I don't want to misspeak or anything, but the good thing about tomorrow, you get to meet a lot of people in the team and have these conversations, and we're gonna have some like new ways and new setups of how to do that tomorrow during the content phase of before the party part. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to ask and talk about these things. Again, I just don't want to say something I'm not allowed to say.
Right? No, we get that.
To the chat, too. I'd say a lot of the questions coming in probably are more geared for tomorrow's conversation than.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, Eminem, if you want to know more about Cat Island, there is a great UpX podcast episode about it. The Wikipedia probably has. Also, just pay me. We'll do the Cat Island is a fascinating story. As someone who has owned half of the properties on Cat Island.
Geez, here we go again.
There are 4, right?
Yeah, there's 4.
I sold the first one for $500 when the cap was $500, and sold the second one for $10,000.
That's nice.
And yeah, it was a great Kitty Island. Trevor, is
Jennifer listening?
Yeah. Anyway,
looks like it.
When's my adventure gonna be?
Oh, whoa! Oh, you got the turnaround. I didn't say that. Oh, whoa!
From off camera.
The perks of being in the office.
Yeah, that was not me. Oh, Dirk is listening too. Oh no, everyone. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah. Jennifer's a sweetheart. Don't be mean to Jennifer.
By the way, speaking of Jennifer, like, have you seen the amount of meta ventures we've been able to launch in the past 2 weeks?
Yes, it's been an insane amount.
Yeah, no, it's
and my
really
factory's up and running.
Factories are up and running.
Yeah, so we're
excited.
Working a lot in the last months about optimizing the process for having all these approvals, and with the help of the amazing Jennifer and the leading of Jennifer, right? We actually are at a better place right now. I know a lot of players may have been a bit frustrated with the initial rollout and kind of like the the friction.
Yeah, I think if we're being honest, there's still a lot of frustration. Like if we're being really transparent, like I think there is a lot of frustration. It doesn't feel like there's as much transparency. But I think as people who have been in it now for a while, we go, yeah, it is a very methodical process, but there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think people are very anxious to get a part of it because they feel like they're going to miss the boat.
Yeah.
And what I would say to the community is like, you're not going to miss the boat. We're just now getting things ramped up. Like I know patience is hard. I mean, we know firsthand, like it's been hard, but.
And for the players that are new to the game, that just came to the game and expecting the finished product, expecting this, expecting that, we've seen it from the infancy, so we understand, and we've been there. And even and if you haven't lived through it or understood it, it's hard to explain and get it and really understand. And we're understanding and patient because we've developed relationships with your team over the years as doing the podcast with you guys guests on the show, the ladies guests on the show. But we get it. But a lot of new players, it's hard to convey to them, so their frustrations kind of bubble over easier.
And again, we've always, like, I think there are different DNAs of different kind of like companies and game operators, etc. And I think on one side there is build it 100%, envision it and then release it after 3 or 4 years. Or you can kind of like, release, as early as you can, learn from what you released and adopt.
No, it's an agile development methodology. Yeah, it's agile versus waterfall.
And that's besides being on mobile, your guys' agile development is what we've really enjoyed of being participants in the Upland metaverse. And now, with all these announcements that you guys rolled out this week leading up to Genesis Week, it looks like we're getting closer and closer to utility with our properties, with our block explorers, with, just not AI generated race. And, that was the biggest knock was like, oh, it's AI. Well, no, you guys just figured out how to do this. And you weren't just going to let it die. You were going to work on it. And now we're going to see the changes with Go cards. But so, we're getting closer and closer to more functionality of our assets in the game.
Absolutely, and again, we always, I always love kind of like, with the dear community when we have either AMA stuff like that. There's always a repeating question, very very summarized and very short. When utility, right? and again, and I think like again, it's a gradient. It's ever evolving. Every month there's more and more, and even just with properties like the thing that we're getting ready to launch now with immersive cafes, for example, right? Imagine for a second you have a successful cafe that is busy and people are coming and they're watching content together and they're talking in spatial audio together and et cetera, et cetera. But now when you walk out to the balcony, you see the properties around you. Now suddenly those properties are receiving eyeballs, right? They're receiving visitors, right? And you truly own it. You can put whatever you want there, right? So that is introducing utility kind of like on the second and third and fourth layer without actually, again, it's not like not every utility is like a feature that we deploy, right? It's again, it's that connection that happens where people spend more time instead of, let's say, on Discord. Now they spend that time in the Upland metaverse and they experience all the surrounding. That by itself gives a lot of utility, basically, and kind of like presence to everything that you own in Upland.
Presence and value, I think. I don't know that I would argue that it's not inherently utility, but presence and value.
So how would you define utility?
Function. It has to have some sort of function, whether it's something that can generate
Let me ask
revenue,
you, if I put a billboard and on my property and I have 50 people a day that are watching it, is that utility?
Billboards are utility. Advertising is 100%. So you could add utility to it that then enhances the visibility. Sure.
And what if it was up to you to define that utility, right? And again, that's what we're striving for. At the end of the day, the concept.
But that's okay, but then it's not utility. But you're giving the capability to add
exactly.
utility.
But the backbone is the mechanics that we provide. They are going to become the backbone of all future utility in Upland. And it's not going to be 100% up just to us to come and say, okay, we're deploying this feature and this is the utility. It's going to be, there's going to be a point in time when it's going to become more and more possible to take the infrastructure and create out of that, unimaginable permutations of different utilities that are going to be attributed to the properties, to the space in Upland.
Yeah, so I would say it's a foundational, like, again, having the visualization, even like race. So like you came out with the racing. To me, having your house in one of the race adds value and adds visibility. It does not add utility to me. But I do agree with you that, again, having the ability to then empower utility on your platform.
I understand, but what I was going with that is that when you take the utility of car racing, for example, which is utility, and you take the utility of cafe, which is utility, and you, let's say, merge them together, suddenly you have a new type of, okay, you don't call it utility, but
value.
Again,
it's value generation.
Okay,
sure. I agree with that. I think that those properties, and we see that, right? We see properties that are around a meta venture get an increase in value. We see neighborhoods that have multiple meta ventures increase in value. So I do see visibility and value. That is not utility, though. I would say most people would agree. It's not utility. Value, you're adding value, which is what we need and want, but it's not adding utility inherently.
Okay.
Sorry. That's just, we can agree to disagree on that, but yeah. All right, go ahead. What else you got?
Okay. We got a lot. We still got a lot to cover.
I know. That's why
I know so much. Anything else before we move off of the life and totem? I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions. One of the things, even yesterday running into players that was talked about was we were hoping that, we've heard about it. We haven't heard. Is it going to be sale for UpX, US dollars? Is it going to be a high cost? Is there going to be different tiers of these totems that would go up? Because they're all going to be unique. Is it going to be affordable for all the Upland players?
All of that are great questions for tomorrow. So I won't go into detail right now.
Sure.
But yes, it's going to be affordable. I can say that anybody who holds a totem will get an initial kind of like a drop of Proton, so they can get started with it. And again, this is going to be a limited scope release, right? So don't expect now, like, it's going to be limited amount of items, but probably enough for everybody to be able to stand in line and get one.
Oh, okay. So that's because when you say limited, because like, are we saying like, because the first round of cars was limited?
Well, that was extreme, but that was constrained by forces of production, right? So because we can produce them faster.
But that's a good question though. Do totems require Spark to be created?
Yeah, but the way they're going to be deployed, first of all, yes, every map has to require Spark without exception. And the way they're going to be deployed, though, they're going to be sold as passes that you then exchange for the item. So you're not going to know exactly.
Kind of like FIFA, like the FIFA.
Kind of like, so you don't know. It's not like you're going to shop whatever you want out of, because each one is unique. It's almost going to be impossible for you to kind of like go and shop for the specific one you want. So it's going to be kind of like an unknown exchange.
Each totem is. Are you saying each totem is a one of one?
Each totem is a one of one. It contains a unique set of traits.
Because of the traits.
Yes.
2, 4, 5, 1, 1.
And the llama totem, that's the grand prize. It has all the top traits.
Which, if you win, again, I will be paying cash. So if you win it, hit up TML because I want it.
There's another guy that's probably paying cash for it too. There's a lot of people probably paying.
No, because he's not going to play with it. I will actually use it. I will use it to its full advantage. Don't give it to somebody who's going to sit on a shelf. Give it to me. I'm going to use it. I'm going to farm. I'm farming Protom hard. Like, believe I have. There's been.
I know that's what you're looking for, being the gamer, and this is exactly what you've been looking for and excited.
This is one of the big things. I sometimes miss my weekly check-ins, like my daily check-ins, because it's not that enthralling. But this will get me back in being an active player of like going and checking the totems. This is interesting to me as a gamer. So you got me. I'm going to be trying to get these totems.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Reading some comments right now as Dizzy scrolls through them really, really closely.
Shameless plug. Was that shamelessly plugging? What are we plugging? Okay.
All right. So it sounds like we've kind of touched on the structured utility. It took a while for the ability to filter properties. Are you still looking at more user interface, i.e. for the being able to trade 2 properties for 1? So I got this really nice rare, and I'm going to take 3 exclusives for that rare.
Absolutely, yes. Again, we have constantly on our roadmap, and it just hasn't been high enough given priority, but bundle swaps are absolutely part of what we want to put in there.
Do you see third parties doing that with like the
You
escrow
can
service?
you can do it with escrow. Of course.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we could probably just do that with
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And again, anything
Yeah.
that we take time to deliver, like, and the first person to, I mean, look at the guys at the Spark Exchange. They are actually running a lot of volume in Apex through the escrow services, which is great.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't get to delivering and something that was on our roadmap, and somebody picked up the glove and basically.
So wait, are you still exploring? Because I mean, like the Spark Exchange was actually on your roadmap.
It's on our roadmap, but I can absolutely say that having somebody from the community providing the relief of the pressure of this much needed utility, that also releases the pressure for us to prioritizing it in the roadmap. So it gives us more opportunities to work on other things. So,
but that almost feels like a double-edged sword, because then what I just heard was like people, like say myself, who have been waiting for the centralized Spark Exchange now, and we were told like that's coming, and now you're like, well, actually, if somebody else is doing it, maybe we don't need to do it.
I didn't say we don't need to do it. I said it's still on our roadmap. It's been there for a while.
Yeah.
But again, we prioritized our roadmap. Again, like
fair.
It's every time, let's say, Spark Exchange is going to compete versus transportation as utility, or shipping to properties, or allowing multiple structures on a property, or renting things in Upland as opposed to just selling. So there's always going to be competing.
That's fair. And honestly, actually, Jason makes a good point. Spark Exchange is kind of dead because of Spark Utility, but that's a different.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity to buy Spark right now to develop your properties, because sooner or later you will see a change in it.
I mean, that's speculation.
More on that, because I know right now if we build a property, we can see 1 living unit or 2 living units or 3, assuming that something is kind of coming hopefully down the pipeline there.
Again, those things have been envisioned from the get-go, and now that we have the first iteration of immersive experiences, yes, absolutely, that opens up the future of basically you not just having your home address by name, but having maybe a space also. Again, now you can more clearly see the pathway of how we get to those things, like your apartment, your living units, how you can decorate, how you'll be able to decorate them, etc.
I know, like you said, you have the search functionality for a lot of the properties. I think some comments that we had talked about yesterday, as well as other ones that come in, is could that search functionality, or even like a ranking order. So let's say I'm going to build the Harlem collection out in Manhattan. I've got multiple properties. Either one, could you have the default sort be, the highest mint value be at the top? So kind of by default, you just pick the 1, 2, 3 at the top. And or if I'm making a trade with someone, I'll be honest, I've got 11,000 properties. It might take me an hour to find that property.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit that our property search functionality is not good, to say the least. But I think, like, again, so we had, the thing is with properties, you had the ability up until now to search, right? And whereas meta ventures and NFTs and assets didn't even exist. You couldn't even look for them. So it was a higher priority for us to just make these things discoverable first, to the point where players can actually search for them, which in turn then empower, again, the secondary markets, because now you can actually think about what you want, and you can actually look for it and see where it's being sold or who to make an offer to.
Sure.
And I think, but yeah, making property search better is absolutely on our mindset.
Well, I think like collection management and stuff, because now there's so many.
Definitely not a knock by any means. I'm just saying it looks like there's already some property search functionality within the game itself, and it's almost like the meta ventures. Like, let's just say there's 100 meta ventures out there. I've been sitting on one again for a couple months. The part of me's thinking, like, again, I know there's a lot more to it, but it's not just a simple copy paste the new text, the new background images, and here's the property and launch. It sounds like there's a lot more to it. I have to update the rosters and the addresses and everything else. Kind of similar here. It's like it does sound like it's a lot more difficult to take that search functionality you've built and just plug it into other parts of the platform.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not so simple as just to say it.
It's just copy paste, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
But I'll give you one example again with our the way we search for properties. There are two different things. So one is address search, and for address search we rely actually on Google search to provide the results and to get you to the geolocation of those results. Whereas in things like NFT search and like the asset search and meta venture search, this is actually a search functionality that we have deployed on our backend. So the same search functionality is going to also be deployed for properties. So now it's very basic, because when you look for your properties via text. When you do a database search on our properties,
Yeah.
then it's very limited. So you can probably do a text search and probably filter by it's sorted by price or something like that. And I'm not 100% sure like what kind of filtering possibilities you have there,
Yeah.
but it's very, very basic. We want to take it to a bit more advanced, so not just to provide you the address search, but actually functioning good property search based on the property. So
That actually makes a lot of sense on the barrier, because you're right. Google search versus using your database. So the search, you couldn't even copy paste it because it would just link to Google in theory. It wouldn't link to your
yeah, because that's a geolocation search, whereas when you want to look
An
at your
asset
database,
search,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But it is going to come again. I think we've introduced a whole new search functionality backend when we introduced both MetaVenture and asset search.
Yeah.
So that can be applicable also to properties, hopefully in the near future.
Okay.
So wanted to hit two things because we are running out of time.
5 minutes.
We are running out of
Is
time.
it an hour already?
Yeah,
I know.
there's
I mean,
so much we can
sit here
talk.
all
We can
day.
sit here all day.
Yeah.
I know you guys got a lot of stuff
Yeah.
going on. Get ready for G Week going on. I feel like we didn't touch on a lot of things, unfortunately.
So much.
So much. I like the structure that's going on with the Roblox, where we'll pay your you earn so much UpX, and we'll buy your UpX back for cash.
You didn't program.
Yeah, that program's. I always call it the Roblox because that's what I was familiar where it came from. But it's some people were worried that, oh no, they're going to cash out high-end players, but you have to be doing something.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
Yeah.
And it kind of like ties to the velocity that you create for the economy. So the thinking is,
Right.
if you created something that caused people to move UpX in between themselves, you're creating value for the economy, and now you're eligible basically to extract that value.
Will it apply to MetaVentures? Even though MetaVentures can sell UpX in
Oh, that's
US dollars,
interesting.
would it apply to MetaVentures because they're moving UpX?
Yeah, I'm not ruling that out in the future at all. I think that also I would say that would depend on the velocity of
It would
the
have to be
activity
a
that's
fairly
built.
large. I don't know
Right.
any MetaVenture that's doing, say, 1 million UpX of volume. a
Not
month.
yet.
But I tell you one
I don't know.
one different thing is MetaVentures give you a direct ability to
Right.
sell things directly for US dollars. So there
That's
is
true.
built-in functionality
Yeah.
to kind of like extract value.
Yeah, that's true. Actually.
Whereas with developer platform, it's a bit different. Yes,
Right.
developers can charge their customers
Yes.
money, but again, the thinking is that if they had a way also to then extract value for the UpX that they're generating, that would lead to them then maybe investing those gains back into the product, which creates a better product. Now you have a
Right.
flywheel that just pushes the economy forward.
Because
So,
sometimes you have players that want that piece of the map asset. They want that map asset, but they don't want to pay US dollars for it. And you get a bunch of people that just, you got to shift more and more of your assets
Yeah.
to UpX style. And you're like, hey, I moved X amount. But yeah, it was just something that was talked out there. One, that for the developers, they have to be generating the flow. UpX. Two, it's a potential for your MetaVentures in the future.
yeah, and to become a developer that does that, you need to demonstrate that there is some kind of value that you're bringing, right? So it
Yeah.
can't be
Right.
just like
And there were a lot of questions out there today. A lot of it will be answered tomorrow. There's still, and patience. Patience is always the biggest thing here.
I think
It's
Jack said aggressive patience.
aggressive
I
patience.
think that's
And
I like that.
some of the features, I saw some stuff we've talked about before about, being able to merge properties, subplot properties. Yeah, it's still on their roadmap, but
No, I
it's
don't think it. Anyway, come by the booth tomorrow
Yeah.
and you can talk. So UpX World will have Jim or Too Stupid at the from UpX Podcast and a bunch of other people, and we can answer some of the smaller questions that were here as well.
yeah. What else did I mean?
Well,
I got
that's
a bunch.
literally like so.
Yeah.
Make sure you stop by the booth. We got UpX World Bingo that you can meet and greet people. So if you're here in Vegas, definitely come check that out tomorrow. And yeah.
Now, what are you most looking forward to in this next year? What's the thing that really gets you going each day right now that like I can't wait to see, how this plays out?
I honestly I just can't choose a single thing. I like everything excites me so much, and so to me You know what? I will tell you one thing. One thing that's going to be a kind of like repeating motif here in what we're trying to do. Trying to get as much activity that happens today outside of Upland into Upland. Getting people engaged and immersed within the app and in the context where they can. So I want to create a situation where your first instinct when you want to ping ThankMeLater, it's not going to be on SMS or on Discord. It's going to be in Upland, actually. And if you happen to be at the same time online, you go, oh, let's meet in the cafe for a second, because it's much cooler to. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to conduct a meeting in full immersion, which is it's fun.
It is
fun.
Yeah, we've done some things like in the it is fun.
It's different. It's definitely different.
It's novel.
Yeah.
How sustainable? I think that's what we have to explore.
Yeah.
Novel for sure. For big events, stuff like this, where maybe we can all virtually coexist. Very cool. Day to day, if somebody's trying to ping me, I'm not jumping. No, I'm not jumping into a virtual anything. You're gonna have a hard time getting me on any form of text. Like, we already get blown up so much.
Of course, but I guarantee you, the first time you walk into a cafe and suddenly you spot somebody you know that happens to be there, you're gonna run to them. That feeling of immersion, it just adds another layer of, I don't know, human interaction to this digital.
I'm looking forward to. You guys have been talking about cafes, and I know like that's been a big thing for the Upland team for a while. So I am cautiously excited to see how that particularly rolls out.
Cool.
What? Doyle? Oh, Doyle's buying tonight. Let's go, Doyle.
He'll lose it by the time we get back.
It's gonna be gone. We better get there and take it off before it gets out of it. Yeah.
we better get back. Well, congratulations on year number 4. One last question. Looking back from where you were technology-wise and when you started minting the first property to where you guys are and all the development, like, can you believe it wasn't as easy as you thought it was going to be, but can you believe how much groundbreaking stuff you guys have created?
First of all, we never thought it's going to be easy, I think. What we're grateful for is that we got the opportunity to stick to our vision, because again, a lot of companies, you have to pivot all the time. And for us, again, I think everything we're doing still ties back to our earliest days of how we envisioned it, which is really awesome, and we're really grateful for that opportunity. So
yeah.
All right, if you're here live in Vegas, check out the other activities tonight and tomorrow.
Registration. We're going to go get registered.
Yeah.
Get our swag.
Absolutely. And if not, hopefully next year, more of you can make it out to Genesis Week. It's a very exciting time out here in Las Vegas.
Getting to meet people. Like, it changes your perspective. It gives you a new level of true immersion. If you didn't make it out this year, definitely try and make it.
Hey, there's still time.
That's true. Get on a plane. Wherever you are right now, get on a plane. Let's
get on a plane. You can make it. You can make it. But thank you so much for taking time with us.
Thank you guys for the podcast. It's amazing that it's been 3 years.
3 years.
Incredible.
Next week. That's the other plug. Next week, Thursday, 9:15 Eastern time, 3-year anniversary show. Do not miss it.
All right.
Really excited.
All right. Cool. Until then, everybody be safe, have fun. We'll see you out there in the metaverse.
The Xperts podcast with the property expert. If it's happening in Upland, it's the place you want to check first.